Hello everyone, how are you doing? Today we've got something to talk about that is extremely important. It's not really what we usually do on this channel, but I just felt like when I saw this, some red flags were going off in my head, and I thought to myself, if I don't say something about this and really just air out my conscience, then I don't feel like I'd be doing the right thing. And so just consider this a public service announcement. Now, well, we're going to talk a little bit about sort of a political election actually that's going to happen here in California. And before we get too far into it, I just want to preface this by saying that I'm not here to talk about political parties or political sides or really anything like that. I'm here to talk about the actions of individuals, and because it is an individual that's running for this office, and that's who I want to talk about. So the seat in question is Congressional District 25 in the state of California. The man running for this office is Cenk Uygur. He is the host and founder of the Young Turks. It's an online news company that primarily runs off of YouTube. Some of you even out there have probably seen or heard of this gentleman or seen videos about him or anything like that. And it's what's nice though is because of this YouTube channel that they have, it also provides us with it provides us with a much better look into the man's past and the man's views that we don't get with a lot of other people that run for office. Yeah, let's look at our individual in question here, huh? Cenk Uygur. If you like this quick analysis video here, please be sure to leave a like, you guys. Only if you appreciate the video, though. That's my one rule. And also subscribe if you guys want more content. Let's not waste too much time with the prelude stuff, though. Let's jump into it. So really what I want to look at here, and it's in the title, is hypocrisy, specifically with a politician. Now, with someone running for office, I think that one of the most important things, or one of the most damning things, I guess I should say, when someone's running for office is hypocrisy. It's the easiest way to really just tell if someone is two-faced or if they're doing something for an agenda or a political agenda, or really just if for any reason, any two-faced reason. And I think that we have a pretty good one right here.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is apologizing today after there have been multiple instances of him wearing either brownface or blackface in the past.
So this is where we begin. Now, this is actually from a couple of months ago from the Young Turks here, and this is the Young Turks' channel. Right now, we're hearing Anna Kasparian talk. That's kind of the co-host. In a bit here, it's going to switch to Cenk, and you'll be able to see who we're talking about. But this is the story that we're looking at here. A couple months ago, the Prime Minister, the equivalent of the American President, but for Canada, some pictures and videos started coming out that showed him wearing, brown face, dressed up as like an Indian or a Middle Easterner, with a turban and with brown makeup all over his face, and also dressed up as blackface, dressed up as someone who is of the darker complexion. And the typical response for most people is, yeah, that's kind of gross and that's kind of inappropriate, and especially for someone who's held to such a high esteem, especially for the leader of a country in the free world, we tend to try to hold these people to a higher standard. I'm interested to see what the Young Turks have to say about that, though.
He decided to use brownface in his costume, so that led to a firestorm. And then soon after that, we found out that he also wore blackface and an afro at a high school event.
Okay, now I think this raises a question that I want to get into before we get to the real beef of the video, and that is, if we find out that the leader of our country, and Trump's, I guess, kind of an exception because nothing seems to touch that guy, and that's not who we're talking about, but if you're in Canada, if you were in America 10 years ago, back when the world was kind of normal with politics in America, and you found out that the president or the leader of your country, whoever country you are, had not only done this one time, but multiple times and with different ethnicities as well, I mean, at the least you wouldn't be proud of that. And I mean, at the most, they should probably resign and step down, right? I mean, that's kind of heinous. It's next level. That's so next level. That's the kind of thing where you don't even really get to say I should have known better, because you should have known really at the time.
Yeah. All right, so I am going to half defend him, actually.
And this, ladies and gentlemen, is why I chose to bring up this video, because that was Cenk Uygur just talking there, and what did he say? I am going to have to defend him, all right? Now listen, okay, guys? There's an argument to be made here. I'm totally going to accept that there's an argument to be made on both sides of this. There's an argument to be made that what Justin Trudeau was absolutely horrible, and there's an argument to be made that says that although it was horrible, It was a long time ago and he didn't know any better, okay? Those are the two arguments that are being made here. Cenk is about to make the second one, and there's a valid point to be made here, alright? But just hang in with me a little bit, because I wanna explore this a little bit, and I want this to open up into a beautiful little thought flower. You know what I'm saying?
So, let's get to it.
By the way, there was one other example that I just want to tell you about. So
And there's just a third example. All right, you know, we get it. The guy had blackface on multiple times and didn't learn his lesson after the first couple of times. Yeah, we get that part.
Yeah. So, and he has profusely apologized, said it was wrong, it was racist. He just didn't know it as well as he should have at the time, etc. Okay, so he shouldn't have done the blackface. I'm not defending him on that at all. On the brown face, I don't think there's any such thing.
What do you mean, like it's in people's imaginations? No, we saw it, dude. He definitely had a lot of brown on his face. That was him.
So like when the scandal was first about brown face, I'm like, that's not a thing. So you have to have a conversation about why blackface is offensive. This is what drives me crazy. This is why I thought it was wrong to fire Megyn Kelly without having a conversation about it. I think it would have been much better, but then, you know, they fired her for other reasons. But anyway, a lot of people in this country, I would guess the great majority of this country has no idea why blackface is offensive.
Now guys, we're gonna cut through this and I'll give you the cliff notes. What he's about to say here is that brownface technically isn't offensive because what blackface is a reference to a very specific thing that people would do in minstrel shows in the past, and that would make you know, minority groups look sort of inferior to other groups, and then that would encourage violence towards those minority groups, and that's why it is so much worse, especially in the American context. We don't need a history lesson though. This is what really started showing or raising some red flags for me here, because the history of blackface and the founding of blackface isn't really relevant here. We as a society have kind of come to the conclusion that no matter what race it is, if you take a color of someone's skin and rub it on your face and pretend to be that color, that's not okay. You can't put red on your face and pretend to be a certain race. You can't put yellow on your face. You can't put brown and you can't put black, okay? Those things just aren't okay. I don't care what the historical context is. It's not socially acceptable, and good luck trying to explain to people in the street that it is socially acceptable by saying, no, blackface was okay. It was actually the only bad one because it was part of minstrel shows. No, what we're talking about here is something that maybe isn't illegal, but is definitely not a very... I don't know what I guess I'm trying to say here. It's not a very socially acceptable thing to do, and the fact that he's trying to obfuscate this brown part of it by saying that that doesn't count because there's no such thing as that, let's be real here. That may not be a specific thing, but if you wear a turban and all these different clothes, that by itself is fine, and they're going to talk about how that's fine, but if you then take a bunch of brown makeup and then rub it all over your face to look like that, you're walking a dangerous line.
Kind of depends. It depends on the history and the context.
Yeah, look, it does depend on it. And I get what you're saying because you're right in that brownface doesn't have the disgusting history that you have with the black community and minstrel shows and all that.
What I do like here is Anna doesn't just fold to what Cenk's saying. She is about to throw out a couple of points of her own.
Right? So think about it from the perspective of someone who is Arab or someone who is Muslim, right? So there are all these stereotypes out there about them, all these thoughts about them. And so in order to make people, incredibly sensitive people who buy into those stereotypes comfortable, they have to be very measured in their public behavior at all times. They always have to consider how we feel about things. And so I don't think it's asking too much for white people to consider how their actions and their depictions of people of color impact others.
Yeah, I completely, exactly right. When we're in a society, I'm not saying that any of this should be like illegal or anything, but when we're in a society, we should try to have some common courtesy with each other. And obviously, what he's doing wasn't an endearing thing. He was kind of mocking them. And look into the story if you don't believe me. He was mocking them. He was absolutely 100% mocking them and playing up stereotypes. We're talking about the leader of an entire country here, right? And not only that, guys, this is where we're going to start getting into the hypocrisy side here. So this has all been some interlude, some overview about all of this. Let's get into the real gravy of it, though, because the thing that makes this so relevant is that Justin Trudeau isn't just an average politician. Justin Trudeau is an identitarian politician. Justin Trudeau plays up the struggle of the minority classes, and he plays up, he's very, especially when we look at him from America, he's a very left-wing politician.
Of people putting on fezzes like Turks used to, right? I don't care about that at all. Because people didn't get killed because somebody put on a fez and did racist stereotypes. So that was a thing that didn't happen in America.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I see, I get it, I think, right? Because, like, so if that minority group specifically hasn't been targeted by a very specific act, then it's okay to do that act, no matter what, no matter who you are. Even if you are the leader of Canada, it's okay to mock them then using that specific act. It doesn't have to cause violence to be something where we look at it and we think to ourselves, oh, I don't know if that's really appropriate.
So if some South Asians say, well, I find that offensive, okay, we can have a conversation about it, but you don't speak for all South Asians. And so because one person or a number of people find it offensive doesn't mean no one is allowed to do it.
You know what's funny? I actually 100% agree with that. And I think that that's the stance we should have. And if that was really Cenk's view, I wouldn't care. I wouldn't care. This video wouldn't exist, you guys. I wouldn't have made this video because it wouldn't have been relevant. Because that's how things should be. One person doesn't speak for an entire group, and really we should be allowed to offend each other. My whole contention, I guess, is just that, one, the Prime Minister of Canada maybe shouldn't have done it, and also he's the type of Prime Minister of Canada that would have thrown a fit if anyone else would have done it. Those are my two issues with that, but this isn't about Justin Trudeau. This is about their views on this. I wanted to show you guys how they felt about someone on their team doing blackface, right? Notice how there's no mention on what should be done here, whether he should stay in office or get out of office, and as far as I could see, this is really the only video they made about this. And that is relevant, and I'll tell you why, guys, because we're going to take a look at another video, and this other video here is called Candidate Outs His Own Blackface. Let's take a look.
South Carolina sheriff's candidate wants you to know that he too wore blackface. He's trying to get ahead of things for an expose or anything like that. Just let him explain. Okay?
About 10 years ago, as a young police officer, I attended a law enforcement Halloween party dressed as ruthless drug kingpin Big Meech Flannery.
Alright, now this video happened about 9 months before the Justin Trudeau video, and about a year from when I'm posting this right now. So, right at the beginning of 2019 is when they had this video right here. So 9 months before, we're looking at the Justin Trudeau video about blackface. And the only real difference here is that, well, there's two things. This guy is an attorney general. He's running for the attorney general, I believe. We'll find out in a second here. And the second thing is that this guy is a Republican, so he's on the other team. You know? Let's see what they have to say about this.
I did it to disparage a criminal whose actions hurt our community and country. That was a different time.
So right away, I want to point something out. This guy's defense is the exact same defense as Justin Trudeau's. The difference? Justin Trudeau got exposed. He didn't tell anybody. Some people found these about him, and then they accused him of it. He apologized, didn't say anything else, and then they kept finding more of this guy. He never got in front of it. This guy right here, this Republican, he told us up front. Doesn't make it okay. It's still kind of weird that you were dressed up in blackface, but guess what, dude? You told us up front. That's the difference here that we're looking at. Let's continue.
Today we understand that type of costume is troubling to many. To those who may be upset, I understand your disappointment, but I value honesty, so I'm opening my campaign with transparency. That's why you can always count on me to tell you the truth. That's the cornerstone of trust.
Kind of a side note, but that is kind of a bombshell, isn't it? That's the kind of thing that would 100% destroy a political career, and he just threw it out in the open. I don't even really know who this guy is. I don't know who this North Carolina guy. I don't know anything really about him. That's not who this video is about, so don't take this as like an endorsement of this guy. This guy might be a total psycho, but I don't know. I thought that was interesting.
I love that. At least he kept it real because everybody else in the video was white. So when he held the baby, because if that would have been a black baby, I would have left.
Yeah, because all you see is color. Yeah, she's the worst one on this whole show. That's a video for another time, though.
But like, it looked like a scene from Waterboy. I'm not even messing with it.
The whole thing was ridiculous. And then he wasn't even like fully honest. It was like, I did it because drug dealers are bad and I wanted to make fun. No, you were racist, honestly, and you not copping to it today in your apology makes me think you may still be.
Notice first of all that the bottom footer for this video is, but you still wore blackface, which I don't think is that's not really even unfair of them to say. Like, okay, dude, you apologized, but you still did it. You know, you can apologize for killing someone, right? But you still killed somebody. You know, and then the points for apology, negative points for the action. But I love how they just don't give this guy the benefit of the doubt at all. And if, like I've said, if there was some consistency here, that's fine. But we're not seeing consistency. We're seeing them treating one person with one standard and another person with an entirely different standard. And by the way, I just want to throw this out there. You news hosts don't get to decide why he did that. Don't sit there and say, oh, he's kind of like not even being honest about why he did it. You have no idea. This guy is running to be an attorney general of a state. Most people don't even know what the attorney general is. Obviously, this guy's a nerd for the law. He wants to be the lawyer for an entire state. And what, you don't think that he's interested in criminal overlords and stuff like that? What?
Like, come on.
So I think there's a little bit of nuance here, but first I'd like to join you guys in making fun of him. Okay, so number one, that was 10 years ago. I'm like, you made it sound like it was like 50 years ago, right? That's 10 years ago, it wasn't that long.
And
10 years ago. This is important. Remember, this is the guy that's going to be running for this congressional district. When we're done looking at this, we're going to look at one final article, okay? Remember that this was 10 years ago, and Cenk says that wasn't that long ago. Remember that, because I wonder if he has something that he's not very proud of that he's said or done that was right around that time period ago. Weird.
Seed, etc. And this is pretty similar to it by saying, I am not a racist, even though here's me in blackface, which then led me to question, is he doing it for transparency or is he doing it to get white voters?
And he
Interesting. You know what also gets me about this? Look at how much they're talking about all of this racism and all this stuff involved with this gentleman here that's running for, and it's a big deal. He's running to be the Attorney General of like North Carolina or something, but it's a big deal, right? Because that's a pretty big office. You know what's a bigger office though? Being the Prime Minister of an entire country, the country of Canada. And you know what? They didn't say a single thing about that in their video about Justin Trudeau. They didn't say a single thing about Justin Trudeau doing that. Come on.
So look, I'm not as positive that every person who's ever done blackface had bad intent.
But as it says on your footer for your video, you still wore blackface.
But hear out what Brooke just said. Then let's have the same standard for everybody.
So what I gleaned from that is that Cenk Uygur and his news company, the Young Turks, they like to look at everything through a progressive lens, and when they see something like that, it doesn't really matter that it was 10 or 15 years ago that this happened. He still did it, okay? The guy still wore blackface, and that's wrong, and he's a racist for doing that. He's saying, I'm not racist, but I did blackface, which they're implying, of course, that he's racist. But yet it's okay for the Prime Minister of Canada to do it because he's on their team. The difference with the other guy is not on their team. And that's what really, really irritates me about this, because we shouldn't look at the world through teams, okay? The world isn't two teams. That's such a too simple of a way to look at it. America isn't two teams that make up two halves of the country. It's 320 million people that all have their own wants, wishes, desires, and dreams. And to relegate them to each independent side like that is a joke. It's horrible to do that. And you're going to do that and then play to your side as a favorite while disparaging the other team for doing the exact same thing. Well, actually, you're right. It wasn't the exact same thing because the guy that you're disparaging came out and admitted that he did it in front of it all. Whereas the other guy had to get exposed, and even then hasn't admitted anything, and who knows, there could be even more out there. I don't want to necessarily believe that, but guess what? He didn't say that there was more after they found 1, or after they found 2, or after they've now found 3. Come on, right? And this Cenk Uygur guy, this is the guy that's running for that congressional seat. The guy that wants to go to Washington, D.C. and make rules and policies that affect every single one of us inside of this country. He'll be one of around 500 people who are writing laws every day that affect how we live. And you know what? This is the icing on top. This is what I really wanted to get into the entire video. We'll take a look at it right here. On the Hill, looks like Young Turk founder, past remarks on women were attempt to be a stupid, politically incorrect Republican. What? He has some past remarks on women? Let's see what he had to say. So this is what they were able to pull up that this gentleman said here. He said, Cenk said, in 2017, the Rap.com, which is not considered a partisan outlet, fine, published comments by Uygur dating back to 1999, around 20 years ago, alright, that included his contention that women are poorly designed creatures who have flawed genes. What? He says, obviously, the genes of women are flawed, Uygur wrote in a 1999 blog post. They are poorly designed creatures who do not want to have sex nearly as often as needed for the human race to get along peaceably and fruitfully. In another entry, Uygur's rules of dating included that there must be orgasm by the 5th date. Yeah, this guy's running for Congress. Okay. Let's see what he has to say to defend himself, though. He says, first of all, I wrote that stuff 19 years ago. I deleted it 15 years ago, Uygur told CNN host Chris Cuomo during an on-set interview. I deleted it not because I thought I'd get caught or someone would find it. I deleted it because I didn't believe it anymore. Yeah, and you know what? I'm gonna play the same game that your co-host was playing. How about this one? You know what though, Cenk? You're kind of being dishonest. Like, come on, man. Like, oh, what? Because you just don't believe it anymore? What? You didn't care about the outrage? It's just because you didn't believe it anymore that you went back, found a blog post from 5 years before. So you went and perused through all of your blog posts 5 years before, found that one, and you were like, you know what? My views have become a bit more nuanced than that, and I just think that I've evolved. And he removed it? I find that hard to believe. That's the game that your news host was just playing, Cenk. That's the exact same game. But it's not okay for other people to play that game with you? For some reason, when you defend yourself, then that's okay? He says, this is not me. I was trying to be a stupid, politically incorrect Republican. And see, this is exactly the kind of thing I'm talking about here. And this is what closes us out about this. He's playing teams. He's 100% playing teams. And you know what, Cenk? The time of being in a divisive America, we need to bring that to an end, all right? We need to be done sending people to Congress that are going to further divide this country. And right now, that's what you're doing. You're defending people on your side for doing something immoral while attacking other people for doing something immoral. And then here you are doing something incredibly immoral and then using the exact same defense to justify it? Come on, man. Let's be real. And not only that, you take it a step further. See, there's almost a genius behind his political mind because he not only tries to apologize for it, he tries to turn it into a political attack. He says to himself, yeah, okay, I may have done it, but that's because back then, I was the same guys that my enemies are. And so if you hate what I did there, which I've evolved from, then you must hate my enemies. Whoa. No, dude, I'm afraid it doesn't work like that. You're kind of psycho. You can't write that kind of thing. You can't write women are poorly designed creatures who do not want to have sex nearly as often as needed for the human race to get along peaceably and fruitfully. That's some eugenics-y kind of a stuff. Normal people don't talk about the human race like that and how to manipulate genes to try to make things happen and that's not a normal thing to talk about with different genders. We don't look at women and say, man, if only they had better genes, then they'd be better for the human race. Yeah, dude, you're walking a very dangerous path, and the thing that really gets me about this is if this was in a vacuum, if this would have been said in a vacuum, and then 20 years later this came out, and the guy said, you know what? I was trying to be an edgy teenager. That's what he was trying to be. He was trying to be an edgy 24-year-old or however. He was like 23. He had been graduated from law school when he wrote that blog post, I believe. This guy, this isn't him when he was 14. This is him when he's like 24 or something. And you know what? People do evolve. People change, and your views change. And you could have said, you know what? I was just trying to really be edgy. It was a blog post. I was just trying to get clicks. So I was trying to just really throw stuff out there. And I've evolved past that. But that's not the same benefit of the doubt that they're giving anybody else except for when they're on their team. And that is why that is not okay. That is why this is inappropriate. That is why this is unacceptable. And that's why I felt the need. Not the want, the need to make a video about this and to create basically a public service announcement. So let me just end by saying this. If you are in any state really, but specifically here in California, and you're able to vote for this congressional district, I'm not even really saying vote against Cenk or vote for Cenk. All I'm going to say here is vote your conscience, please. Just vote your conscience. And the presidential election is going to be important, of course, but really, this guy's running to be in the Congress where they write the laws. The president doesn't write the laws. The Congress writes the laws, okay? This is a guy running for office to get into that position to affect all of our lives. So just please, all I ask, go out there, go into the voting booth, remember the names, and vote your conscience. That's all I can ask. You guys have a good day.